This is my story and my testimony, which ultimately led me here, led me to be a believer in Christ, to be a believer in God and Christianity, to attend churches and to be surrounded by God-fearing men, and to overall change my perspective on life to where it is now. So the past 6 years have been nothing but transformative, like fire. I can describe it as fire. If you sit in fire, what is going to happen? Pain. And you're going to change. But this type of fire, the Holy Spirit fire, let's just call it that, it not only changes you, but it transforms you. When you go through the fire instead of going around the fire, you gain traits, you gain presence. I would say you almost gain aura, because of what you put yourself through and what you didn't run from. And there's goodness that comes from sitting in that fire and sitting in that pain. There's purpose in it, and that purpose, it builds men. It builds a lot of men, and it also breaks a lot of men. But through breaking, that's when people can reconstruct. Through the collapse of a man is where he has the opportunity to rebuild himself in however he wants to identify as a strong man. I would imagine they would want to rebuild themselves as a strong man, right? No one wants to come back weaker. So that's just a brief summary of what happened in the past 6 years. From 2019 till about 2022, I was undergoing intense solitude, intense pain, all alone, pretty much. I was living with my grandma, and I still am. And she was rarely home. She would work all week and actually sleep in Mountain View, sometimes weeks, months at a time, because she didn't want to commute back and forth from like an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes every single day. She would rather just stay in a hotel paid for by her company, and instead of having to commute. So I was going through intense breakup, solitude, and I was alone. I had nobody. My parents were away, and I didn't reach out to nobody. I just kind of just took it by myself. I took the weight on my shoulders and I carried it in silence. It broke me. I was a nobody to everybody. Nobody kind of looked twice at me. I had nothing going for myself and very little income. And that's when I decided to build myself and really build the man I envisioned. I envisioned the man I am today, but I didn't anticipate how I was going to become this man, how I was going to be broken, when I was going to be broken, or who I was going to be broken by. And we'll get to that later in the video. So from 2019 to 2022, I went intense self-discovery. Like I said, summing up 3 years in a couple of seconds is it's a short, it doesn't give justice to what I went through and all the pain that I went through and all the transformation, but only God knows and only I know, right? And that's the special thing, is that nobody has seen the pain, the silence, the burden that I had to have carried, but myself and God. And nobody will understand but God, because He sees all things. And that's where we can draw strength from, and that's where we can draw peace from. And then fast forward to 2022, I am somewhat the man that I had built in the past, from 2019 till 2022. I am somewhat of the man. At least that's what I thought. I came up, and I knew that the next relationship, I was waiting for it. I had spent a long time waiting for the one that God was gonna land into my life, the one that I was gonna really settle with. I came into the relationship, I thought, with a clean slate. I came in rooted, purpose-driven, focused, disciplined, kind, thoughtful, loving, generous. I had the mindset to give, not to take. I had learned from my past relationship and all the shortcomings of my first relationship, and maybe that I can dive into that in another video if anybody even watches this. So I came in corrected, and I came in how I thought I should come in, with a clean slate, disciplined, etc. But then I was broken. I was broken and I was beaten down, and I collapsed. I collapsed. And I lost who I was. I lost my discipline. I lost my focus. I lost my clarity. I lost a piece of myself, and I forgot who I was. And since I forgot who I was, I took on a new identity. An identity of someone that is suffering. An identity of someone that is unhappy. An identity of someone that is angry. And that's who I thought I would be forever. That's someone that I thought that I was just gonna live like that. One of those grumpy, hopeless, drunk uncles that are just like, oh, like, that guy, he looks like shit. That's who I thought I was gonna be, right? And mind you, this is from about 2022 till about 2025, 2026 almost, this year. So for about 3 years, I had developed this identity, this false identity of who Cyrus, myself, really wasn't. That wasn't me, but it was me. And I take full accountability of all my wrongdoings during that time. This is just a video of self-reflection. This is just a video of processing everything that has happened. I've done wrong, and I did wrong, and that doesn't excuse the wrong. I take full accountability of my actions. So, during that process of losing myself, it was a very negative spiral, and I didn't see a way out. I didn't see a way out at all. And then, over time, fast forward, the current relationship that I was in but it was breaking. Not only was I breaking, but my partner was breaking. And the foundation that we had laid was very fragile, and that broke. That's why it's very important that you have a foundation, and I knew that going into the relationship. It's very important that you have a foundation of support, of strength, because during adversity, if it breaks, then the relationship breaks. So when that foundation broke, everything in my life kind of spiraled down. I lost a lot of my savings, all of my savings actually. I lost my sense of self, and I was completely shattered and broken, and I didn't even know who Cyrus was anymore. And I'm being very transparent and very vulnerable here. And I hope people draw strength from that instead of judge, but who cares if I get judged, actually. This is a place where I found strength in God, so it's a very good testimony. So after the foundation has broken, it was only a matter of time before a separation happened, right? Humans can only endure so much amount of pain and unhappiness and discomfort before they call it quits. I happen to have grit. I have a lot of grit. You can tell on my black eye, but this is only a small badge of honor that I have earned through the grit that I possess. I possess an unimaginable amount of grit. I can go through so much adversity but still bite down and keep going forward. That is one of my strengths. That is one of my gifts from God. One of a few. I have a couple. So does everybody. In Corinthians, it talks about that. But the separation happened, and then God. I wouldn't say God came into my life, but I searched for God. Because as soon as that separation happened in June 1st, 2 days later, I was sitting with unbearable pain. Unbearable pain. I'm telling you, I couldn't sit still. I couldn't just sit how I am now. I needed to walk. You know how you go through so much mental pain that you just start walking around, just moving around, fiddling your thumbs and such? That was me. And I hit up one of my close friends that I've known all through childhood, and I know he goes to church, and he's prayed over me. Actually, right here in the spot, he's prayed over me, which is very ironic, right? Shout out to him. Praise be to God for him. More blessings to him. And I hit him up and I said, hey man, is there anything going on in the church? It's Wednesday. Is there anything going on? And he was like, actually, it's First Wednesday service. Come by, we have a guest speaker. And I come and I listen to the message that the guest speaker had given, and man, I left with peace. I left with a sense of self. And I never looked back since. I've never stopped going since. And mind you, it's only been 7 weeks, right? So it's like, I don't want to toot the horn or whatever and act like I've been spending years in service and years in the Bible. No, that's not what I'm saying. But my heart hasn't looked back since. And I don't care to go back to my old ways. I don't care to go back to any of that. But here I am reading the Bible, going to a small group of God-fearing men, and going to church and learning who I am through God again. And this time, instead of having the foundation as myself, because that's where I drew strength from in the past, myself, now it's through God. And this time, it may break. I might turn away from God, but at the same time, the foundation that God creates is strong. And it's not easily broken. It's not easily broken. I am of the flesh. I am of blood. I am not godly. I am imperfect. I am a sinner. And I'm weak. But God is not any of those things. And with Him at the center, and with Him at the foundation, then things are possible. And I will put my faith and hope in God, because I cannot do it on my own anymore. I've been broken and humbled before Him. And that's my testimony. That is how I found God. This is where I am now. I remember Cyrus again. The kind, the happy, the smiling, the loving, the thoughtful, the generous. And I cast away the generational traumas, the unseen forces and the spirits. I cast away all of that, and I will leave that behind. And I will continue to grow with God's hands forming me like clay. I will continue to grow. It is a beautiful testimony, and there's, in my whole life, the rest of my life, I'm 25, and the remaining years of my days, or the remaining days of my life, will be a forever testimony of God. Because my whole life has been a testimony. I just wasn't a believer. But God puts His hand in all things, non-believers and believers. And here we are. Praise be to God. And I give thanks, and I have given thanks despite being in pain. Because pain builds character. Pain builds grit, and grit builds character. And through that comes faith. So, in the end, it's all good. In the end, it all comes full circle. God makes sure to take care of you. You know, that's why He gives us His word. He gives us His word that we'll be taken care of. That good will always win. And it's a good message. And that's my testimony. And I hope whoever's watching this draws strength. And I think it was, I forget which part of the Bible, but it pretty much says that we fight the devil through our testimonies. And when people hear our testimonies, it gives them faith, it gives them strength. We draw strength from God, but through each other, through hearing our testimonies. My testimony, I hear others' testimonies, and it gives me strength, it gives me faith. It brings me back to the Lord when I hear people's testimonies. So I hope that's what somebody is experiencing with this. But I'm gonna continue to document this journey. I might disappear again for like a year when that season comes, but that is my story.